this little live. Hello, Sean. How's it going?
Hi, Avery. It's going great. I'm excited for today.
I'm so excited for today. I feel like this is a topic that we've been, banging the drum on for a while. And this kind of feels like as we get into 2025, this is the year that brands are really starting to take notice because everyone is underinvesting in organic social. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, again, Avery, thank you to you and the marketing team for putting this on. I couldn't agree more. What a timely topic. I'm Sean Walsh. Great to meet and see everyone. I help lead global business development across VaynerMedia and VaynerX. I've been in the Vayner world for the last 5 years and had a front row seat to the impact organic social can have on brand and business and every single aspect of your marketing. So really excited to kind of break that down a little bit today, and most excited to highlight some of our amazing clients that we have with us to kind of tell their stories. And really our hope today is to give everyone watching maximum value and maximum insight. And then again, we're going to be here for follow-up conversations and questions. So I'm also excited to hopefully have some people reach out to me for follow-up conversations.
1,000%. I know we've got a community all around the world. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn Live or Twitter or Instagram or wherever the platform is, whenever it is, we're happy that this message is reaching you. And we're really pumped to share you a little bit on how Vayner is thinking about organic social and how this is a critical building block for brands. So with no further ado, I'm going to let Sean take it away and I'll be in the backstage, and feel free to comment any questions.
Awesome. I have a sneaky feeling we're going to see you again, Ave, as we have some fun here.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm not going too far.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Avy, for the kickoff. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. Run of show, we'll take the next 10 to 15 minutes to really set the stage for why we believe that organic social is the most critical and crucial part of your marketing strategy today, through some very kind of clear rationale and reasoning. And then again, as I mentioned, we're going to have a few of our brand partners who are putting this into practice daily, highlight how they've brought that to life. So really excited to take you all through this. So if I keep moving here, I think a good place to start is a timeline view, right? And the reality that the game in organic social today is massively different, certainly than it was in the early days of social, 2005 to 2015, when organic really looked like email marketing, right? You would collect followers on your Facebook or Instagram, or I guess in that stage, really Facebook page. You would then, at the early days, reach a certain percentage of those followers through organic distribution, really based not at all to do with the creative you put out, but simply because those people follow you, right? Then we moved into kind of like this 2019 to really present, but really 2019 starting stage of social STV, where organic reach went to next to nothing. Paid distribution was the name of the game. Again, but people started to look to social, similar to TV from a consumption perspective. We are now in what we dub the non-follower era of social. And that is a huge, huge, huge point to understand for all brand marketers. When you're thinking about organic creative, right, or organic distribution on Reels across Meta, both Facebook and Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, even into the world of LinkedIn, where they have a full video, vertical video organic distribution feed, 90 to 95% of the content and creative a brand, a user puts out in the world on those organic platforms today is viewed by people that do not follow that brand. That is a huge departure from where how we've seen organic creative be distributed. And the AI-driven algorithms that are matching relevant creative in feed to relevant users that are interested in that creative is creating a new world and a brand new opportunity for brands and companies and creators that really understand how to create for organic social to actually drive reach and distribution through the validity and the relevance of the content they create, which is, again, a massive, massive, massive point. So if we go to the next slide, kind of breaking that down a little bit further, we believe that relevance is the biggest elephant in the room for brands today across the board, but specifically because of what's happening in organic social. This is driven by the fact that attention is scarce, right? We are competing with not only other brands, but other creators, other users, whether that be influencers or just creators down the street, right? We are in much more of a meritocracy when it comes to actually driving the reach on social. So attention is scarce, and we have to take that into account. Brand is no longer built in the boardroom, right? And I think this is something that more and more brands are starting to understand as we look at how they're talking about creative relationships and internal social teams being extremely important. But no longer can you shoot a TV commercial, slice it 5 ways, and put it across 10 channels and hope that actually drives reach and distribution. That's really a recipe for irrelevance in feed, right? And then the last point, again, as I've mentioned before, creative relevance actually is rewarded with reach and consumption in platform, which is an enormous concept for marketers to truly understand, which puts an imperative on creating better, best-in-class organic social creative and a really deep commitment to that from a brand perspective. So when we think about overall our services at Vayner, to set the stage for folks that aren't necessarily familiar with us, we provide services that hit every box on the right-hand side here, right? Traditional creative and media, buying TV, creating Super Bowl commercials, digital creative and media, right? So everything from Amazon to programmatic, et cetera. But the bottom rung of this breakdown, social, is really where obviously we believe the rubber meets the road in brand building and business driving today. And more in particular, where we'll focus today's conversation, we believe that organic social, the bottom left box, is the most important part of your marketing mix heading into 2025. And we also believe it is the most underinvested part of most brands that we talk to from an actual resourcing and investment perspective. So we'll break down over the next few slides kind of the 5 reasons why we believe this to be true based on data that we've seen from our clients, data we've seen from the industry. And then again, we're going to move in to talk to some of our great client partners and understand how they're applying and kind of capitalizing on this opportunity in the hopes that everyone listening today can again extract a ton of value here and learn. First and foremost, right, when we think about why organic social is so critically important, we are witnessing the fastest upstart brands that are in hyper growth mode and stealing share from more established Fortune 5, Fortune 1000 brands across categories. It's just a known fact that they are over investing in organic social creative as a massive line item of their marketing expenditure, and they're reaping the rewards of it, right? So whether it's Poppy and Liquid Death in the beverage industry, Chipotle has been a shining example of this, kind of helping drive their growth for the last several years. Cuts in the apparel and fashion space. We know that these brands are over investing in organic social creative, not just through influencers and creators, but actual brand creative in feeds on TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts, et cetera. And we also wanted to include a key point here that Gary Vaynerchuk, right, our chairman and CEO, who has and is maybe looked at as one of the best, if not the best practitioner of organic social creative in the world. This is a really important point that Gary himself, right, invests $3.8 million in the 40 plus person team Gary V that populates his organic social feeds on a daily basis, right? That's how Gary is able to show up in YouTube with really hyper relevant content and specific contextually relevant content on LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok on a daily basis and really fuel that audience and relevance growth that Gary's brand has seen. We want to include that to give context of what we mean by resourcing, right? This isn't something that can be looked at as an afterthought or a line item investment. We believe it needs to be at the center. As we think about social, right, and organic social importance, point number 2 is probably the most kind of universally agreed upon head nod point, that social, we believe, is the world's best consumer insights engine, giving actionable and real-time data at scale, especially when you commit to daily social creative populating those feeds, right? The qualitative insights that we are able to uncover from the comment section informs so much of what we can do, both from a creative and brand marketing perspective, not to mention a product innovation, a consumer road mapping perspective. Avery, welcome back.
Ron, I'm gonna chime here because I feel like this is something that people like don't necessarily always think. Like if you are one of those CMOs who's up in the comments, who's reading, who's listening, like you get this. And I think we see this in a lot of the emerging brands, but some of our biggest partners like are really coming to Vayner to help them uncover insights that they can get for free in real time from social media, like things like color preferences, things like sentiment analysis, things like competitive research, because this is not something that we have to do in like an old school focus group or, wait to do quarterly or once a year. This is something that we can always be testing. And, and a lot of times these insights are actually leading to things like product innovation, which even a few years ago, that was just not how people were thinking about social. And I think now people are really using some of their consumer insights and research budgets and time and effort and energy to dig into social, to understand sort of like what's going to be that next big thing, what's going to be sort of trending, and how people like actually feel, like real people actually feel that are like unbiased in the world.
It's such a good point, Avery. And like for context, when we work with brands on organic social, one of the main deliverables that I think a lot of our clients are almost surprised by the impact that they get is what we call a monthly relevance report. It's not where we kind of come back with stats on a per post reach. Like there's reporting obviously on a weekly basis and insights, but the monthly relevance report is really geared at getting to what Avery just mentioned, what truths about the consumer, what insights about the consumer, the category, our competition are we able to uncover? And we've had CMOs play back to us that they have big internal insights budgets that they don't really get much out of, and they're getting way more out of this. So this is yet another way that we're seeing the value of organic social impact well beyond just the organic social feeds themselves. Point number 3, I think, is again, one of, if not the most important point on this list, right? Social assets and social creative today, especially on the vertical video platforms where there's massive eyeballs and distribution, are functioning like the modern day television commercial, right? With the potential, and potential is an important word, based off of the relevance and the validity of your creative, but the potential to reach and impact millions of consumers with a single post for free. I think everyone's familiar with the gentleman at the top of this screen. I would hope, if you're in the marketing world, from a few years ago, dog face, ocean spray. We are not saying that every organic post will result in 2 billion organic and earned impressions. This one really caught fire, but this is a really good shining light example of, like, when is the last time you've seen a television commercial actually sell out product everywhere nationwide? The reality is that post with dog face, listening to Fleetwood Mac, drinking ocean spray, vibing on his longboard, actually sold out product and totally kind of evolved how Ocean Spray thought about marketing. There's several other examples on this page. Opendoor and Mug are the 2 clients that we're really excited to have to talk to. So we're going to actually break down a little bit more. But the reality is, given how content is rewarded based on its relevance, if I have 1,000 followers, have just as likely of an opportunity to reach 100,000, 200,000 as Gary Vaynerchuk does, who has 50 million followers. Because again, today, organic social has nothing to do with the follower base you've built. It has everything to do with the relevance and the validity of your creative that you're putting into these algorithms on a daily basis. This is a massive point. And again, we are not saying that every post you put out is going to reach a million people, but the potential is there. And the brands that are capitalizing and realizing this are the brands that are resourced in organic and are leveraging these platforms to the full up of their capabilities. So as we keep going, right, when that happens, when we see over-index distribution, when we find right, this is a massive kind of boon to the efficiency we can bring into the entire marketing investiture, right? Because when we think about, we really firmly believe, and we're going to talk about this with Tirza and Michael, our guests in a few, but we firmly believe in the concept of finding right versus being right. Like, we are not a creative agency that comes into meetings with subjective opinions on how to make really expensive, big brand television commercials. We much rather would actually do marketing for the sake of better marketing, validating through social distribution and quant and qual research what actually works and is driving relevance with consumers. Again, leaning into the fact that the social algorithms, the AI-based algorithms, are probably the best and most scaled application of artificial intelligence in marketing today. We really lean into that and leverage those insights to then scale into larger campaign work. Tirza from Opendoor is going to walk us through exactly how the post you see on the left, which we call which has influenced a series called Reasons to Move. We took social insights and have informed Opendoor's current television creative and TV copy that's running now and will run through the end of the year, which is really exciting. Planners is a brand that we've had the luxury of working with on several Super Bowl commercials. Every single one of those has been validated through exact and specific social insights from start to finish. So super exciting, but I think this is a massive one where we believe, again, what we truly believe is investment needs to increase on organic social, but that investment needs to come from somewhere. So we believe that you can substantially de-risk and inform your above the line investment by committing more resourcing to social and being smarter with when and where we go 360 above the line. And the last piece, and I think, again, for folks on the line that have that span kind of creative and media, like, this is not strictly a creative and brand building conversation, right? Committing to organic social daily is actually something that is super strategic for you to get the most out of your media investment as well, especially if you are spending on platforms like Meta and TikTok and Google, which I would imagine every brand in the world can and should be spending on those platforms today. These are just a few of the stats that the platforms have published in the last year, right? Facebook and Meta did a large study last year that 56% of every auction outcome across the globe in the Facebook ads interface is dictated strictly by the creative as the variable, right? You can have perfect audience targeting, you can have perfect bid strategies, et cetera. The creative itself is the variable. At the same time, Meta is very clear that differentiated and diversified creative needs to be the strategy, right? So we're looking at 20 plus creatives in a given ad set. We have found that when populating those ad sets with creative that outperforms organically, we see significant increase in efficiency, whether that means we are recouping media dollars and hitting the same results, spending less and letting you invest that in brand or other places, and or whether we're reinvesting that and just driving incremental ROI across the board. TikTok has published a study recently with Ipsos that supports very much of the same spirit. And again, we are seeing this play out every day across the integrated businesses that we run at Vayner. So for those brand marketers on the line today thinking, okay, how can I convince and start to think about getting increased investment in organic? This is one of, if not the most important points that we can make. Paying off your investment in organic with actual media efficiency and performance and brand building is something that is very real, given the state of the algorithms and how paid is working across, again, really these biddable social digital ecosystems that are capturing more and more spend today. So that is the last point that you'll hear from me, but we don't want you all to just take our word for it. So I would love to pause here. And again, as I mentioned, we are lucky enough to have two of our awesome clients with us today. I would love to welcome Tirza Molina from the Opendoor team to join me on the stage. And hi, Tirza. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. First and foremost, Tirza, thank you so much for joining us today. Tirza, why don't you give a quick introduction to the audience on you, your role, and kind of what your focus is at Opendoor?
Sure. So thank you guys for having me. I was very excited to be invited and absolutely love working with the Vayner team. Quick background on me. I've always been in tech. I've spent most of my early years in PR and did some strategic partnership stuff, then went into sales at a cybersecurity company and quickly realized that none of that was for me, but I loved marketing. So marketing has been my bread and butter. Started there as our community manager and just owned everything from social to events to everything. And then 6 years, or I did that for a few years. And then 6 years ago, I was approached by Opendoor to also run social media and be our community manager, and have evolved my roles since. So I've always had social in my purview, but I now manage all consumer brand creative. So everything from social all the way through to our TV commercials is me. And I absolutely love it. I love that a lot of my career was, started and rooted in consumer empathy and, customer empathy, because now that I'm at this point where I'm very much focused on content creation and creative, I always really, have the customer at the forefront. And that's especially important at Opendoor because we are not necessarily selling shoes or makeup. We are a real estate platform that is changing the way that people, think about real estate. And we're really in the business of progress and helping people move forward by making selling and buying easier than ever before. So no small feat, but we're excited, and there's a lot that we have ahead of us.
It's amazing. And again, we've just loved the partnership that you've been at the center with Lauren and David and the rest of the team. It's been such a joy. Your background, you've been at Opendoor, like you said, with organic or social in your title for 6 years. Let's start with where was, and not necessarily, Opendoor, sure, the company, but also that time of organic social to what we are talking about now. Would love to hear you talk about kind of the journey to where Opendoor is today, and then we'll unpack what today is looking like. But I know it's been a journey along that road for you.
It has. And as you had that timeline up, I was like, oh my goodness. That
was remembering
yes, it was.
Facebook organic reach went to zero.
Yes. And there was, all brands were kind of figuring out how to behave over the last 6 years. I think, it's changed so much. The landscape has changed so much as you showed. And I think, we were kind of part of that. And I think the best way that I would describe it, and I think you touched on a bit, was we kind of treated social as this place, we kind of took a matching luggage approach. So anything we were doing in other channels, TV, just anything, we were bringing it to social and slightly changing it ever so slightly, thinking this was making it social first and hoping that we would see really, really amazing results. And we weren't, and we had to get really, really real with ourselves. And, it took time. Every single year we were reevaluating the program, making different kinds of investments, tweaking it ever so slightly, and just hoping and making incremental changes. But we really had to take a really realistic look at ourselves and the program and what we wanted to do, moving forward last year. And, we had to recalibrate our goals, recalibrate and get honest with what people are coming to social for as well. They're coming to be entertained, right. They're coming to be educated, and we cannot just be shoving ads at them or things that feel like ads, because they see right through that. And we need to break through in some way. So it was really amazing when we, as a collective team and our leadership as well, we're going to make a big bet. We need to invest in social in 2024. So we, come today, almost a full year since onboarding the Vayner team, and we're really seeing the success and the magic that comes when you make strategic investments and you put resources behind it. You get the team, you get people excited, and you have a lot of leadership buy-in, and the results are really, really promising. And we're excited to be at this phase. And it took some time, and it took some honesty and some, I think it's important to have conversations like this. And I know, we're not alone, and I'm sure people on the line are also feeling this as well, and why they're on this call. But it's excited to finally be at this phase, having been in the early days where it was like just keeping the lights on. I was in Canva myself. I was trying to make things and getting support where we could, but now it's a whole different ballgame.
We've changed a little bit from the days of like cute kitten memes getting distributed, right? Of like, let's actually drive brand and business here.
Exactly.
I think you bring up a really good point, Tirza, and like the reality. We talk about it all the time that we have a ton of empathy for the brands and clients we work with, right? Because what we are talking about is a pretty radical departure from the norms in the industry today, right? And I think you just mentioned it. We're about a year into our partnership with Opendoor. I think, again, there's not a better example that I've seen of a client and a partner that is kind of jointly leaned in with us, and kind of like we've built the one team, one dream approach. What would you say, if we kind of like get into a little bit of the details for the folks on the line here of like, so, I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about like, what has the commitment to organic social really looked like for Opendoor in the last year? Yeah. And like, we can get into some of the work and some of the examples across some of the different kind of categories we've talked about, whether it's scaling to TV work, whether it's comments as creative being a massive driver of impact and reach for us. I would love to kind of like unpack a little bit more of the specifics of what you've seen and the impact you all felt.
Yeah, no, I mean, beyond, onboarding the Vayner team, that was kind of step one. We also, brought on someone full-time to run social. Like in the past, and I would say a lot of brands are probably, have done this themselves, where social is kind of like a part of someone's role, when the reality is it needs to be someone's full time. They need to be in there. They need to be in the weeds. They need to be in the data. They need to be like constantly doing this. And I think that was a massive step when we finally hired someone dedicated to this program. And then we had the full support of the Vayner team and all the creators and all of the different folks that kind of make up our day to day. And when we saw that, our production volume went up insanely. Like we're producing over 100 pieces of content a month with the team. Yep. Prior to onboarding Vayner, I think we were probably at almost 8 posts a month, which is just a crazy dramatic departure. And those posts were super, like, we spent so much time like fine tuning them, really trying to hope. And, we were also hoping for conversion, which is a crazy expectation, I think, from organic social, which, we, as part of our getting real with ourselves, we really had to recalibrate how we looked at performance and how things, should do and what they should look like. So we adjusted from conversion to focus more on awareness and reach and engagement, things that you cannot necessarily pay for. And with that, like I said, we're producing over 100 pieces of really engaging and breakthrough content that is resonating with more and more people, because that is the intention, right? With creating content at this volume and this scale, there's so much stuff that people are consuming every single day. We have to figure out ways to get in front of them in really, really relevant ways. And you do that through comment at a really high volume, but also really good strategic content that is speaking to them in a way that they want to be spoken to. And, we're definitely seeing results from that. And I think, we're also using it as an insights machine. And we kind of talked about that a little bit, and you alluded to something we did recently that was really, really impactful, but that it is a place I find myself often talking to different teams within even the organization, our product teams, our research team, all of that. And I'm like, hey, why don't we try it on social? We'll let the people tell us what they want to see, or let's get it in front of you people. It's not going to cost us a lot of money. If anything, it's just an organic social post, and hopefully we'll get you some results, and we'll bring that right back to you, and we'll make some change from that. So it's been massive in a lot of ways, but I think those are some of the big ones.
Such a helpful overview, and so I wish we had. I mean, I think we could do 40 minutes on just.
I could talk for days.
We could go for days, but I think you mentioned something really crucial and critically important, right? The jump in actual volume of output is so huge, right? And we talk about it a lot, that we believe, again, back to the point on like what the reality is of the organic social algorithms. Like, Tirza, your feed on TikTok would look, I would imagine, almost 100% different than my feed on TikTok would look, right? And there's a world where we could nail the creative for you for Opendoor, and we would be all in your feed, but we would never really reach me. Like, we talk about that a lot through the lens of consumer cohorts driving a lot of the content output. But the broader reality is we believe that there's more opportunity to be more relevant to more consumer segmentations today. To do that, you need to have a volume jump, right? I would love to hear you talk a little bit about like the learning journey we've been on together, because to jump into that volume, that means we are being less probably subjective and applying kind of, I would call it the classic creative director type feedback to every single post, right? And this again is something that we go through with every client that we onboard. But I'd love to hear you talk about that journey, because I know we're at a place now, and I get to watch as a fan on some of the Opendoor text chains, et cetera. But how fast you all are able to move from a comment to an idea to a larger execution. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that and the journey to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was intimidating at first when we initially started working with you guys last year, and you're like, we're gonna be producing at really high velocity, and you guys kind of stick with us. Let's hold hands. And we're like, okay, like we wanted to do it too, but to do that, there was a bit of like, okay, how? So I think where it all started, not to get too in the weeds, but it's like it started with very clear expectations from the jump, and we worked very closely with our legal teams, the Vayner team. We set up really, really smart yet flexible guardrails that allowed us to allow us to work in this way. We know what will fly legally. We know what won't fly legally. We know what will fly from a brand perspective, what won't. And that allows us to kind of say yes more often. Like the team knows this. I'm like, I love to say yes. We have sessions literally called Yes And, where we're reviewing creative on a really regular basis. It's tons to look at, but it's literally my most fun meeting ever of the week. And it's sometimes things are a little bit like, there's a head scratcher here and there, but sometimes you just have to, like you said, you have to remove your own bias, because it's maybe not for me. It might be for someone else. And we just have to try it. And we have to, be cognizant of, yes, there may be brand flags or whatever. And that's where we edit and that's where we change things. But we all have this ambition and this hope that at the end of we want something posted. We need to let the world tell us this didn't work, this did work. And then we go from there. So I think that kind of critical setup and alignment between both sides is massive. Yeah. And then there's a lot of trust too. Like we trust each other. We're not going to guide each other any specific way. They know, the team knows when we give feedback, we try to give as much context to where the feedback came from. So they know what to do for the next time. So it's a beautiful dance. I like to say, I'm like, it's an art, it's a science, the whole thing. But in order to move quickly, it starts from a place of, really strong foundations, a lot of trust, and then this desire to really execute at this pace as well. Like we all need to be in it. Like we are grinding together. And I think we all feel that. That's where the magic comes from.
That's such great insight. I think so incredibly helpful for the folks online. It's kind of like back to like alignment, especially early on alignment of like the freedom within a framework.
Yes.
But then also knowing that there might be some places where we kind of touch the third rail together, and leaning in and leaning towards a bias of yes and versus a bias of no but actually is one of the biggest openers for brands to really get this, because then when you can't unsee when you put something out that maybe wouldn't pass the subjective test, but actually gets quant and qual insights, gets distribution, leads to bigger ideas. Speaking of, Tirza, I'd love to focus. You had mentioned kind of like let's talk about Reasons to Move, right? I think Reasons to Move is such a fun story, and it's such a great example of the commitment to organic, but then this team's, and really kudos to you and really your job is literally to do this and to scale. How do we take and scale those insights to impact the business outside of just organic social feeds? So Angelina, maybe we can bring the slide up and maybe like as Tirza is walking through, we can kind of talk about, I need to share the next slide. But yeah, Tirza, I'd love to hear you talk about Reasons to Move, which is this post in the middle, and then we can play the TV asset once you kind of describe.
My favorite. So Reasons to Move, it started essentially as a really great series that the Vayner team kind of came up with that highlights the realities and often relatable reasons why people might want to move. That is our business. We help people move. So it's, lovely and funny when we can put some humor on it and get people to relate to some content. So for example, this is a funny one we did during the Super Bowl time, where essentially it's like this person, the joke is, when you find out your neighbor's a fan of the opposing team, you got to move. Reason to Move number 558 or whatever. So from that was a really successful organic series. And we were proud of it. We saw a lot of engagement, did lots of different versions. But then this moment arose as we started approaching the end of the year, where we wanted to launch this very contextually seasonal campaign that we wanted to bring to TV. This is something we wanted to do for the end of the year. Traditionally, real estate the end of the year, the holidays is not notoriously the most desirable time to sell, or is not necessarily, marketed as the best time to sell. And we really wanted to turn that on its head, because the reality is when you use Opendoor, anytime is the right time to sell, no matter the reason, no matter the season. And so when we brought this to the Vayner team that we wanted to do this, and I like to be honest with this, that I was like almost skeptical when the team's like, no, like this is the first time we can actually do what we like to call a socially informed campaign. And I was like, okay, but maybe a few other things. And they're like, no, let's let what social told us was working. Let's try it here. So of course they brought us other ideas, but then it all came back to adapting this really, really fun theme that we had on organic social to the TV space in a very seasonal, contextually relevant space for TV. And we came up with our first spot that you'll play now. But it was just this very magical, life cycle of something worked really well here. The people told us they liked it. Why are we breaking that? Let's listen to them. And then, it makes us feel much smarter about the investments we're making when we're producing something for TV, because we kind of already know people like it. So it's really magical. It's not always the trope when you make new TV. So we were really happy to do this. And so, if you want to set it up, I'd love to. Vampire is one of my favorite songs I've ever worked on, honestly.
Let's take a look at it. Yeah. And hopefully folks recognize it because I think we're live as of last week, right?
No, Vampire is live as it ran all through October. We have some fun stuff coming up though for the next holidays. So keep your eyes peeled, but this is a fun one that was running through October.
Amazing. Here we go.
Time to move? Make it easy with Opendoor. Sell your home in any season for any reason. Start your move at opendoor.com.
You just hate to see a garlic garden going in next door. Hate to see.
Yeah.
But I think this is such a good example, such a clear example of, to your point, following the breadcrumbs, not being right, not getting in a room and saying we believe and predict because we are good at making creative presentations that this is what we should run, but the consumer has led us here, right? And so this again is another really good point of like the organic social impacting way more than just the organic social feeds. I think, Tirza, with our last point here, and Angelina, we can probably pull the slide down so everyone can see our faces. With the last point, Tirza, I'd love for you to kind of talk to the folks on the line that are looking to, hey, how can I kickstart this with my organization? How can I start here? Like, I think one of the biggest things that we've talked a lot about and is the lean in from leadership on your side, right? And kind of like the permission and the buy-in to take the hands off the reins in certain aspects and kind of allow the inner workings of our teams to kind of push this forward. But I'd love to hear you talk about that because I think that's so key and translational to everyone listening today.
Totally. I think, in terms of, getting the leadership behind all the things, like I said earlier, like we had to get really honest with ourselves. And that started from leadership. Every single person that has touched the program over the last 6 years, it started from a place of like honesty and the reality that we know we want to do better. And, when our leadership, gave us the okay to bring on a team like Vayner, that was just the biggest unlock. And I know that sounds very simple, but I think it's like, I had spent many years each year kind of re-justifying the investment in organic social. I have, different kinds of decks, different ways to show it. This is the results we could see. We could augment paid in this way, like always kind of pitching. And I'm sure there's a variety of folks on the line that have been on both sides of those, where you're either receiving that deck or you're the one pitching. And all I can do is like encourage that both sides kind of come together and hold hands around this, because it's a new time. And like you will have to make up for lost time if you don't make this investment sooner rather than later. Like it's evolving every single day. The landscape's changing every day. Like if you can strike now, I'm so glad we did this a year ago so that we're kicking off 2025 in like this really, really amazing place, especially, to have a sick campaign under our belt in this way. Like we've now, in my opinion, used a lot of the powers of the Vayner team to get us to this place. And we've gotten to use you all in more ways than we almost, I think, thought we might in the first year, which was really, really special. So I think, just that trust and that honesty amongst everybody to just dive right in is critical. And I think, for us, knowing that social being such a public place. Every single thing that we make is, out there. It can easily be screenshotted, sent to us. What is this thing? And like
Yep.
that doesn't necessarily exist all that much, because I think we've proven enough value in the things that we're doing and the creative that we're making and in the results that we're showing that we're not needing to do that every day. And there's trust from our CEO or CMO, every single person down. There's kudos, there's props, there's a lot of social can also be a morale booster. Like I love when someone internally is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the social team just did that, and shares something really, really exciting. And it's massive. So I think it's like kind of an organization wide, but it starts from the top, and having that support and that trust allows the team that are in the day-to-day, because it's a grind. It's a grind, and it's lots of scrolling. Our whole team would probably be very embarrassed about our green screen time, but it's a lot, and it's something that it takes a village. And I want to take a quick second to also just thank everyone that touches our brand, everyone that works at Opendoor. This is like a partnership between legal, comms, our social leads, everybody, and then the Vayner team as well. But it's just it takes a village, and I think that's the biggest message. If anyone walks away, is just like trust each other, take the leap, make the change, because it's time.
You're right. And I think what a great point to end on, Tirza. I think obviously myself, but certainly our Opendoor team echoes back to you all of like the enablement from you and David and Lauren and the full team. So excited for where this brand and business is going. And again, we believe that organic it will continue to be at the center, and so excited for the work we do together. So Tirza, before we let you go, what does everybody need to know about exciting things coming from Opendoor over the next couple months? What should we look out for? Any last minute words?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of started to allude to it, but we have some fun stuff that'll be coming out over the next few months. So keep watching the space. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't plug to follow Opendoor on social to see what we're up to, and also see the different amazing content that we're producing every single day. And just next year we're so excited to do more. That's the best way I can describe it. Like I said, you guys have shown us the different arms and flexed and been amazing partners through this year, that it only makes 2025 that much more exciting to walk into, because we now know how to work together in a really beautiful way. So we're just going to do bigger and better things next year.
Awesome. And if anyone is buying or selling a home, Opendoor is your first and only stop. That's a great plug. Awesome. Well, Tirza, humongous thank you for taking the time out today to join us. Amazing work you're leading. We'll hopefully see you soon.
More soon. All right. Bye. Thanks, Sean. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Tirza. Awesome. Shifting gears, going from selling homes to selling delicious carbonated beverages. I'm super excited to welcome Michael Smith, our client from PepsiCo. Michael, how's it going? Oh, looks like we're like, Mike, are we doing a green screen background? We almost have like a green screen going on here.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but who knows what this will change into.
We'll see what our graphic team can throw up behind you there. Michael,
Absolutely.
Why don't you introduce yourself and say hi to everybody and give them a little background on you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I am Michael Smith. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for the flavored sparkling portfolio at PepsiCo. That includes a lot of our soda brands, but I think the one that we want to talk about today is Mug. It's a very fun role, especially on a brand like Mug. It's enjoyable on a day-to-day basis. I've spent a good portion of my career with PepsiCo and had the opportunity to work with the Vayner team across multiple brands. So great partners, and excited to dive in a little bit.
Awesome. Michael, I think beverage and the category is so interesting given this context, the conversation we're having today, right? Like you're seeing this play out with some of the upstarts, and there aren't as many categories, I think, with as many entrants into the upstart kind of new world, right? As we've started to see. So I don't think I need to educate you on that front. I think in terms of our work and the Mug partnership, I don't know if there's a better kind of use case or example of truly the impact of organic social given where the brand was, where we are today. So I think maybe, Michael, can you give this group a little bit of education on kind of like what the last few years have looked like on Mug, and then the real lean in commitment that you and the brand team have helped lead with our crew on truly what organic at the center means for a brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with you that Mug might be the best and most interesting case study for the impact of organic social. So Mug has sat in the Pepsi portfolio for decades, and root beer over the last couple decades has not been the growth driver of the soda category. So, like a lot of brands within our portfolio, it was in distribution and it existed places, but it wasn't something that we were investing against significantly. It wasn't a core aspect of our growth plan. And then about maybe 2 years ago, the category started to change, and we weren't doing anything. We were just kind of continuing to manage the brand, make sure it was available, but we saw significant growth within root beer as a category holistically, and Mug got a little bit of tailwind from that, and that made us start to look at the category again, because we're always trying to understand consumer trends, where consumer trends in beverage are going, and whether through innovation or existing brands, how do we make sure that we're delivering to the consumer what they're looking for. And so as we started to see trends in root beer, we said, oh, well, we have a root beer brand. Maybe there's an opportunity to drive some growth here. And I think one of the smartest things we did was we took a very small team and a very small sum of money and very little leadership oversight and said, hey, go figure out if there's something here. And what's great about that approach is it took away the PepsiCo level kind of tyranny of oversight and tyranny of big budgets, which means you have to do all of these things, and all of these people really need to be aligned to what you're going to do. And so the team was able to move really quickly to start to understand what about this brand could resonate with consumers. And they were almost forced to look at organic social as a way to do that. There was no budget for large TVCs or significant PR initiatives or sponsorships or any of the many things that we might do with a more traditional brand with a larger budget.
Yep.
So the team in partnership with Vayner said, let's figure out if we can use organic social as the largest focus group in the world, the algorithms as the largest focus group in the world, to start to figure out what could really resonate for Mug and who the consumer was for Mug.
Yep.
And the team just started making work. Like there were some hypotheses, obviously, of what could work and some cohorts that we wanted to look at. But the team really, with an incredibly open purview, said, let's go start to put some stuff out there and figure out, what people are, going to be or not going to be interested in. And what the team found really quickly was that there were certain aspects of Mug and certain brand assets around Mug that consumers were incredibly interested in. And the more and more content the team started to make, and the more and more real-time feedback via views, likes, shares, comments, the team got around what was working and what wasn't working, they were really able to dial in and almost invert how you build a brand. We threw a bunch of stuff out there, understood what consumers were responding to positively, and started to define the brand around that rather than define the brand initially and then push it out to consumers.
Right, and tyranny is your word, not mine. We love our PepsiCo partners, but I think that's such a good, encapsulation again of folks sitting on the other side of this screen right now, right? We probably have a lot of brand marketers that might have that same exact challenge. Like to your point, Michael, can you talk a little bit more around the freedom that opened up for us to find right, not be right? Again, I think that we went into this with some assumptions and hypotheses, as you mentioned, but clearly a year to year and a half, 2 years in together, we are still taking that same kind of open aperture approach, but with some very clear bedrocks. I see a lot of the comments right now. There's a lot of people barking in the comments. A lot of people saying dog is an icon in the comments. So and this might be a good time to bring the slides back up just so Michael can kind of speak to some of this work. But would love to talk to you, to hear you talk about maybe some assumptions that existed because of the, again, tyranny, whatever, the big brand world that typically exists, TV first and then social other places down, into the realities of how this brand and this team has kind of acted on, organic social.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that I would reference to your point around how it was built is the team wasn't required to make certain assumptions or certain assumptions based on small research methodologies. And I love all of our research friends around who the target consumer was going to be for the brand,
right,
what aspect of the brand they were going to respond to, and therefore what the creative and the comms needed to look like. So we didn't put in, again, those guardrails up front around what we thought was right, around being right. Because once you do that, you become locked in. You are committed.
Yep.
You are mentally and emotionally committed to that being correct, no matter what the marketplace tells you. So the team was able to, without those preconceptions, go in and start making content that they just found interesting, that they felt like was related to Mug. And there was probably a bunch of stuff that like didn't hit, right? It wasn't that great.
Sure. Yeah.
But you started to find the things that did, and you found those things because the aperture was so wide. But what I think is valuable to us, and to your point around how we continue to go forward, is once we did find those things, we were able to define what they were. And so again, we got to guardrails around what the brand is, what's its tone, how does it show up? And I'll talk about why I think now it's incredibly consistent. But the difference is, I guess pun intended, we got there organically rather than, getting there based on what we decided was correct. And so to give an example of that, dog specifically has become an incredible asset for the brand. And that wasn't us sitting around and saying, you know what we need to do? The best thing to do is to build the brand around this mascot that's always been on the label.
Yep.
We had a dog head sitting around and thought this was interesting. And we started making content with the dog head. But once we saw dog start to resonate, dog got a uniform. So you always see dog in the black shirt and the blue jeans. Again, that was something that started to exist organically. If you follow a lot of Mug social, dog has his own language. And dog doesn't speak, but when you see content written by dog, from dog, it is very specific. That language evolved over time, but it's very specific to dog. When you see the way our content is cut, some of the audio that we use really consistently, some of the what are now essentially inside jokes around everything from root beer floats to hot dogs. It all was generated organically. But these are now all distinctive brand assets that make Mug's feeds feel very different than any other creators, any other brands, and anyone that's following the brand is aware of these things. They know these things. They've come to expect these things. So when you think about brand, we always do all these branding exercises, and branding is built on all of these, specific assets that trigger, a memory of the brand in the mind of the consumer. Mug has gotten to all of these things. So at the end of the day, it's operating based on all of the traditional principles of branding. It's how Mug got to those things that feels very different than what brands generally do.
So well said. And I think the other, we're obviously talking about dog, and then there's two other posts that don't feature dog on this screen. And you can leave it off the screen, Ange, that's fine, but that are way more product focused, right? Like these Mug moments and that understanding. I think that was something that, correct me if I'm wrong, we went in, that wasn't really on our radar, but now we're at a place where we have permission, almost the expectation of the consumer to create these Mug moments. And we're getting outsized reach and relevance. And it is as good of a product ad as we could possibly have, that maybe doesn't look the same as what we would do in traditional brand building world, but from a reach, eyeballs, distribution, the cue and the trigger to the consumer, it's as core CPG marketing as really anything in the world, right? So I think I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit, Michael, and maybe also of the impact. I know we won't share specific numbers, but like we're one of a couple of the points that we talked about at the beginning of this call is like you can actually put creative out organically with no media dollars and reach millions of people and get millions of eyeballs on. And we've started to see that happen on Mug. So I'd love to hear you kind of talk about, one, the product side, two, the distribution, what you've seen on the reach, and if there's any anecdotal feedback that you all have heard from your customers, your distribution partners that have said, wait a minute, what is happening on Mug? Like, this is real,
Yeah. So all really good questions. So I want to take the creative.
I tend to ask like 5 questions at a time sometimes, so we can break that down.
We'll unpack it all. I think the idea that creative is reach is incredibly important. And again, when you're a brand that comes with a large media budget, or frankly, any media budget, you always can fall back on those dollars to drive visibility. And I think what that does is take a little bit of pressure off of the creative to be great for the consumer. It might pass all of, we do a ton of creative testing. It might pass all of those tests, but the creative doesn't inherently have to be great for the consumer, because it's not the weight of the creative that's driving the reach, it's the media dollars behind it. When you need your creative to be great, because that's what's going to drive the algorithms to put it into feeds, and that's what's going to drive the distribution, then that's where the pressure point is. And so you're going to hold yourself exactly to a greater creative standard, because it has to deliver. You can't fall back on the media for it to deliver. And I think that's just human nature to some degree, that if that's where the pressure is, that's where you're going to apply the energy. So I think, number one, we very much adopted this idea that creative equals reach, which is incredibly important. So we can't fall back on media dollars, even when we have them, which we now to some degree do. And then secondarily, the product piece. I do think that when Mug found right tonally, and when it found its consumer, it then figured out how to natively integrate product into that tone and style of messaging. What I don't think would have worked is if Mug found the right tone, it found the right consumer, and then tried to deliver that consumer a traditional product ad. 100%. So I think the team stayed very true to the tone of the brand, to who the consumer is, and then built product into that, but built it in a meaningful way. So you see a lot of really fun stuff around Mug floats, around how to use the product, around the taste of the product, which again, at the end of the day, is getting across messaging around why consumers don't just love root beer, but love Mug root beer. But it's doing so within the brand and within a tone that the brand has built, which makes all of that product work feel even more distinctive. So I do think we've done a great job of layering in product, but we haven't felt the need to sacrifice brand in order to communicate product. And then, to your point, what I think is even more validating is that the Mug business right now is in great shape. It continues to grow and overperform our expectations. That's probably about as far as I'll go on it, but like we feel great about how the business is performing. And like, obviously that's incredibly important, but what's more validating to me is the number of real life people who have had something to say about Mug. I love Mug Social. Mug's awesome. I love dog. Like, I'm drinking more root beer. Like, I was legitimately in front of a high school class in Washington State last week, and I'm talking about some of our portfolio of brands. And one of the kids just pipes up. He drinks Mug and he loves dog. And that is the like real world validation of what you're doing in this ephemeral space of digital and social media that lets you know that it's really breaking through.
I love it. There's a comment from Danny Chamberlain. Mug is the gospel, dog is the prophet. I love that. That's a good way to end it.
I think we're going to steal that.
I think, look, your last point, Mike, again, no details needed, but you run the business. The business on Mug is healthy. The one variable that has entered the ecosystem in marketing in the past year in any type of meaningful way is organic social. I don't know if there's a better way for us to end our conversation back to why organic social needs to be at the center of brand marketing strategies going into next year. This isn't so we can all get followers and likes and distribution. This is to move product off shelves. This is to drive leads into your ecosystem. This is to drive your business. So I think that's a great place to end it, Michael. Huge thanks to you, all the great work you enable us to do across all the brands that you oversee. Obviously, we love working with you and your teams. Before we drop, Michael, any big plugs, anything big coming on Mug that the crew should look out for, aside from more amazing dog content on the daily?
I mean, I think that there's no brand that I'm more excited for their 2025 calendar than Mug. I would say that we are going to stay true to our roots as far as where you can find the brand. So go follow and get excited about all of the fun and ridiculous stuff to come in 2025.
Incredible. Michael, appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
No worries. Thanks, Sean.
All right.
Michael, you're the best. We also definitely need to green screen like a giant mug thing.
I agree. I'm like, I was waiting for dog to come in. That should have been the background, 100%. Next time.
Be too good. We'll fix it in post. Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
Sean, what a great session. I feel like people are really loving this. People are comments. Is this going to be available after? Yes, this is a LinkedIn Live, so you can replay it after. Sean absolutely crushed it. I feel like I learned a thing or two from you, as always, and from our amazing partners and clients who shared a little bit of their journeys on organic social. So I hope that this has been interesting for our audiences. Sean, what'd you think?
Oh my God, so much fun. I loved all the comments. So thank you guys for being engaging. And I mean, Michael and Tirza will make it all really easy. And again, I'm leaving with excitement that we get to work with partners like that. And And if we want to bring the slides back up just for the last slide, just so folks have our context. So to Avery's point, this will be available for rewatching, but for those who are watching now and want to talk a little bit more, want to unpack, ask questions why, our emails, myself and Avery, are listed below. We would love to hear from you. And we are here to help educate, help talk about specific problems or opportunities that you have. So left today feeling more inspired than ever. I think we're on the right path here, Ave, and excited for follow-up conversations.
I think so too. I think organic social, you showed it as the most disrespected, underinvested part of people's marketing mix. I think 2025 is really the year where that starts to change. We heard Tirza talk a little bit about how she's been on this journey for a few years. Michael talking about that sort of big brand perspective and what it's like when you don't have the resources to sort of do the more traditional work and the breakthroughs that you can find on social. And anyone who's watching this is watching this through organic social. So it's a nice little proof point in and of itself.
Very meta.
Very meta. We do the thought leadership stuff. We do the press releases, but this is a perfect example of we truly put our money where our mouth is. We believe organic social is a transformative power that should be unlocked and leveraged, whether you're a small, content creator or you're a big brand. So it's something we feel really passionate about. And Sean, you absolutely crushed it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Hope to hear from you guys soon.
Take care, everybody.